Thank you, Lascan Corla. First of all, can I thank the regional group for bringing forward this motion on the nature restoration law, because it gives us an opportunity to discuss and debate what might or might not be on the statute books. And I say what might not be, because of course we are discussing a piece of failed European legislation. As a law, it was controversial from day one, with no agreement in several EU committees, and that is absolutely unprecedented. But eventually, after a very rocky path in trialogues and in the Parliament, and desperate attempts by the then Commissioner Timmermans to change and modify the legislation, he got it over the line. So the EU Parliament did vote narrowly in favour. However, it seems to have fallen at the final hurdle, and the European Environmental Council could not reach agreement. Now, Minister Malcolm Noonan is here, but it's my understanding that because of an Irish-led initiative by Minister Eamon Ryan and yourself, that we are trying to see if there can be agreement reached by the 17th of June. So I'm just saying this because that's the context in which we are discussing this legislation. And one other point I want to make very clearly is that there is no dedicated fund at European level. I repeat, no fund, no money of any kind to support farmers who will have to comply with this legislation if it becomes legislation. We certainly have ministers standing up here telling us that this will be resourced. But let me be clear, at EU level, this law is not funded. Indeed, Minister Noonan, you'll be aware that countries like Denmark supported this law specifically on the basis that there would be no EU funding. However, we can put a national fund in place. But, Minister, it has to be ring-fenced, not lumped in with other climate change mitigation measures. We need it to be specific, earmarked, to implement this law if it becomes law. And we need guarantees from government on this, not just some wishy-washy commitment about being included in a package that will include electric car charging points, retrofitting, all important things, but we need a separate dedicated fund. Having said all that, this motion has merit, as has the law itself. Those of us who have read this legislation know it is voluntary for individual farmers, but we also know that when a commitment is imposed on a state, for example Ireland, they will today or tomorrow put policies and plans in place that individual farmers have little choice but to be part of. Anybody who has followed the ongoing impacts of the Habitats Directive will know what I mean, and indeed the Habitats Directive, signed into law in the last century, will be central to the outworking of this law, because we know much of the land impacted by the law are drained peatlands. The legislation now has a derogation, but derogations come and go, as we all know. So the importance of this motion is that it proposes that those lands can continue, that is drained peatlands, to be defined as agricultural areas under CAP. And this means that CAP payments could continue to be paid on the land, not by derogation, but by right. And if the House can agree on that, it is a step forward, a long way from perfect, but a step in the right direction.